Hello, I am Dr. Tabitha Tuckett and I'll be teaching the Historical Bibliography optional module for the MA in Library and Information Studies. So the Historical Bibliography module is the one to take if you're interested in becoming a rare books librarian. But it's also relevant if you want to work in antiquarian bookselling or auctioneering, if you're interested in the digital presentation of rare printed books, if you're interested in book history or perhaps thinking of going on to do a PhD, or if you want a solid foundation in understanding and managing rare printed material in preparation for a role where you have to look after a wide range of material in a smaller library. So the module starts with the first 50 years of printing in Europe, which was caused by this revolution of the invention of the printing press using movable type. And this meant that books did not always have to be handwritten on something like this, which is animal skin. Suddenly, with the printing press, which was a hand printing press, you could duplicate text at high speed on paper. And you could also duplicate the mistakes in the text. So at the core of historical bibliography is learning to recognize and describe the particular version, the particular copy of a book that's in front of you. Because in the hand press period, that's to say the 1450s up well into the 1700s, each book that's hand printed is unique. So we'll learn how to do that and how to describe these differences professionally. We'll look at the way that the page after it was printed could be folded in different ways to affect the format of the book. And we'll learn to make professional page references using the printer's signature and to make a professional collation of the version that's in front of you, that particular copy of that particular version of that particular edition of that particular publication, and how to compare that with other copies and with what might be assumed to be the ideal copy that was intended. We'll also look at the physicality of the book. We'll look at the history of papermaking, at the history of the printing press and how both became mechanized in the 19th century. We'll look at binding and how that moved to publishers' bindings, cloth bindings, to produce things that look like this in the 19th century and the early 20th century. And those were intended for a more popular audience. So we'll be looking at who the books were intended for. We'll look at printers' marks, at how to interpret the title page and the colophon and the date and place and printer. That's not as easy in early printed books as it is with a modern book. Sometimes the printing houses did not put their mark. They deliberately made up, they invented fictitious printers' information because they were interested in gaining a readership for controversial works, religious or political controversy. So we'll look at how the process of printing books related to the widening international book trade in Europe and beyond. We'll also look at the way in which people have interacted physically with books by writing in them, by cutting them up. That was quite common in the early modern period, but please don't do that now. How collectors put their book plates, things like this, inside the front of their books, and how we now can make what's called copy-specific notes, so professional level descriptions of these unique aspects for catalogue records or for booksellers' catalogues, and try to build up a picture of where that book has been and what its history is. The assessment is an essay of your choosing and a small bibliographic description exercise. And we'll do this in close connection with the fantastic physical collections of early printed books held at UCL Library. But we'll also hear from librarians who work with rare books outside of UCL. About myself, I'm also a rare books librarian here at UCL in the library. And I worked before that as an academic librarian in the University of Oxford and at the Warburg Institute in London. But I haven't always been a librarian. I started off as an academic in classics and English and early modern studies. I've taught in universities in Oxford, Newcastle and London as School of Advanced Studies. And I'm currently on the advisory board at the University of Warwick for their Centre for Renaissance Studies. My own research interests include the typographical representation of proverbial wisdom and cultural attitudes to proverbs and proverbial wisdom, looking at the way early modern writers and readers in England alternated between printed text and manuscript text and attitudes towards high and low literature, language and translation. And I do research using imaging techniques to answer bibliographic questions. Finally, I also run the Summer Rare Books Club at UCL, and I hope that you'll become involved in that. I hope that you enjoy the historical bibliography module if you choose to take it, and welcome to studying at UCL's Department of Information Studies. I look forward to meeting you soon.